Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another video. So, happy Friday the 13th. Yes, because it is Friday the 13th of May, 2022. And last night, I officially beat Crash 4. It's about time. As in, it's about time that I got done with playing these Crash Bandicoot games. Because this was actually my first time playing through the Crash Bandicoot series, believe it or not. And in this video, I basically wanted to go over my overall thoughts on the series, what I liked about the games, what I didn't like about the games, and kind of give you my perspective on the whole thing. So, I played these games in order from start to finish. I wasn't going for 100%. I wasn't that glutton for punishment, but I played the first one through the fourth one on PS4, just kind of going through the baseline game, right? So, I started with the first one, and wow, I was immediately surprised at just how difficult the game was. I thought like I was just like really bad at the game at first. And this was surprising to me because I've got a lot of experience when it comes to platforming games. I've 100%ed games like Recompile and New Super Lucky's Tale on the Series S, as well as the Sly Cooper trilogy on PS2 and PS3. And I've also played a lot of the Ratchet and Clank games. So, I've got a lot of experience when it comes to platformers. But jumping into Crash Bandicoot, the Insane Trilogy on PS4, starting with the first one, I was just immediately blown away by the difficulty of this game. And I looked it up online and I was like, oh, I'm not the only one. This really is just this batshit insane. I guess you could kind of expect that it might be a little bit insanely difficult given that it's called the Insane Trilogy. But there's a difference between having a fun challenge and then just having a frustrating mess. And Crash Bandicoot 1, for me, crosses that line and it goes into just being a frustrating mess. And I guess when you do finally get done with it after 78 game overs, yeah, it feels like a hell of an accomplishment, but the, I feel like they're just inflated the difficulty so much just to pad out the length of the game. And it's not really fun. It's just annoying because the pinpoint accuracy that is required, that is demanded of the player. It's so ridiculous. It's like, oh, you were 5 degrees on the left analog stick, and you were supposed to be 4 degrees on the left analog stick on this jump. So therefore, you slipped off this ledge, even though you were 90% done with the level. Now you have to redo the whole level from the start because you got a game over because this is an archaic 1990s platformer. Even though this is a remaster of these games, it still has this archaic 1990s platformer mechanics to it, and the developers actually went out of their way to make the Insane Trilogy even more difficult than the originals. Yes, the originals are actually easier and more beginner friendly than the Insane Trilogy, and I feel like that was a wrong move. I feel like that's going to turn a lot of people off from those games because their experience. Of course, most people are gonna start naturally with the first game, and the first game is actually by far the hardest in the series. It's actually the third one is actually the easiest. The second I feel was a good middle ground, and the first one was absolutely insane. Shouldn't have been the opposite, Shouldn't have been starting the first game. It's actually the easiest of the trilogy. The second game was like the middle ground. The third one was the harder one. You would think that that's the way that they would do it, but they didn't for whatever reason. They did it the complete opposite. I just feel like that was a wrong move. Another thing that I feel was a huge mistake on the developer's part was prioritizing graphical detail in exchange for frame rate. Because, yes, these games sadly run only at 30 FPS. And I'm a console peasant, so 90% of the time, I don't care if games only run at 30 frames per second. But I feel that this is an exception where, because of the pinpoint accuracy that is required, that is demanded of the player in these games, I feel that going for 30 FPS was a mistake. They really should have went for 60 FPS, even if that meant sacrificing some environmental detail or lowering the resolution from 1080p down to like 900p or 720p, or at least giving the option for that in exchange for a 60 frames per second experience. I feel like that would have really made it feel a lot better and a lot more enjoyable. When you got a platformer that requires this kind of precision, 30 FPS is just not good, you know. But it is what it is. They only run at 30 frames per second. All four of them only run at 30. None of them run at 60 frames per second. I think even on the enhanced consoles, I think these games still run at 30 FPS. So I don't know what they were thinking there, but it is what it is. But anyways, so, you know, like I said, the second game was a good middle ground. I feel like that was a pretty good challenge overall. They added a couple things to that game. You know, they added a new nitro crate and, you know, a couple new levels and things like that, but nothing drastically different. It's more of the same. It's Crash 1, but with different levels. That's pretty much all it is. And the same with the third game. You know, again, they changed things up a little bit. They added some, you know, changed the environments up and added a jetpack level and an underwater level. And again, more of the same. A little bit more variety in the third game overall, I think, but more of the same overall. So by the time I was getting into the fourth game, I was already kind of getting crashed out. And even after taking a week away from playing the series and then going back to the fourth game, even, you know, the variety of the fourth game I think was the only saving grace for me. Because by the time I got to the fourth game, I was just pretty much just wanted it to be over. You know, I wanted it just end, you know? I was just kind of done with it. And thankfully, they did add a good amount of variety to the fourth game. It was much needed, you know, changing everything up, you know, from the ground up, you know, new game engine. I mean, you would expect that, right? The fourth game came out way later on than the first three games did. But you've got extra playable characters, new playable characters in the fourth game with their own unique special abilities. You can now do wall running and you can change up. There's brand new mechanics. There's a ton of brand new mechanics to the fourth game, which also at the same time requires a bit of a learning curve going from the trilogy to the fourth game. It's like relearning it all over again. So that does add to the challenge, I think, a little bit. But I do appreciate the fact that they finally added some variety, and, you know, it was definitely much needed for that series. But overall, I did enjoy these Crash Bandicoot games, but is it something that I'm ever really going to go back to? Probably not. You know, I feel like I'm not going to be going back to these games for a very long time. I'm definitely done streaming it at this point. And while I did have fun with these games, I feel like there were some, you know, definite mistakes that they made along the way with the development of these games. And I think that's a shame because I think that's going to end up turning off a lot of people who could have potentially become fans of the series who are now just like, this is just really annoying, you know, and they're just going to move on to different games that don't frustrate the ever-living shit out of them. And in terms of story, well, there basically is none. It's basically, okay, here's the bad guy. This is your generic bad guy. Go beat him up. He's bad. That's pretty much your storyline for these games. So definitely, of course, you know, these are games from the 1990s, especially the trilogy. You know, there basically is no story. It's as bare bones as you can possibly get when it comes to a storyline. But nonetheless, I did have a good time with it. Now, I don't understand the final boss of the fourth game. I feel like that one was just... This guy came out of nowhere. I have no idea who this character was. Maybe there was some kind of side game that I was missing, or maybe I missed something from the third game. Maybe I wasn't paying close enough attention, but I don't know who this Entropy guy is, or whatever his name was. You know, he just kind of came out of nowhere, and he's just like, okay, here's the bad guy for the game, you know? I don't know what that was about, but like I said, it doesn't really matter. The game's not really about the story anyways. But nonetheless, I did have a good time overall with these Crash games. Is this something I'm going to be returning to? No. I think I'm crashed out for a very long time. I don't think I'm going to be returning to these games anytime soon. I'm definitely not streaming it anymore. I've done everything I've wanted to do in these games. I've completed them all. Going for 100%, if you're setting out to do that, best of luck to you. you have a very high tolerance, and I can't, man. It's too much. I would be bashing my head against the wall the entire time I'm trying to do that. So I enjoyed it, but I'm definitely looking forward to playing other games now. Ratchet and Clank is turning 20 years old this year, which is crazy to think about. So I'm definitely looking forward to moving on from the Crash games. At least now I can say that I completed the Crash Bandicoot series, all four of them on the PS4. So I think that's a hell of an accomplishment. I'm really glad to have these games under my belt now. But man, was it was it a mess at times. So that's my thoughts overall on the Crash Bandicoot series. Let me know what you guys think in the comments section down below, and I'll see you guys for my playthrough of Ratchet and Clank on the PlayStation 3. Take care, guys.